Hi, boys and girls. It's been a while since we've read our book, so I'm going to remind you of what was happening in our story. So, in the beginning, Jack and Annie went to the deep blue sea. They went on a trip somewhere in the sea, and they met a professor who was studying some of the marine life, I believe that's what it was. And Jack and Annie wanted to explore it as well, so they went onto the ship with the professor. And then it started to storm, and Jack was getting really seasick, and so he went to the edge to go get sick. And he didn't. He fell into the water with Annie, and the giant octopus saved them and saved them from drowning. And then the men were trying to hurt the octopus, and I believe that's where we left off. Yes, the men were trying to hurt the octopus, and Jack and Annie were screaming no. So now we're gonna find out what happens next. Okay. Okay, this chapter is called Think. Okay. Where's my backpack? Jack yelled at Annie. What? Said Annie. My backpack, said Jack. Don't worry about that now, said Annie. We have to. The wand! The wand! Said Jack as he interrupted her. Oh, said Annie. The wand! We have to find my pack, fast, said Jack. Jack and Annie pushed past the sailors crowding the rails. They ran across the deck. Did you bring it in the rowboat? yelled Annie. Yes. No. I don't know, said Jack. I can't remember. Think, said Annie. Jack tried to think as they ran the upper deck of the ship. Did I have it in the rowboat? What happened in the rowboat? I felt sick in the rowboat. I hugged my backpack in the rowboat. I remember, said Jack. I was holding on to it when we first came aboard. Then where is it? Said Annie. The wardroom, said Jack. Hurry! Cried Annie. Jack and Annie raced down the 2 flights of stairs. They looked in the wardroom. Jack's pack was not there. Henry's lab, said Annie. Yes, it's in there, Jack cried. I remember now. I left it on the table. I put it down when I looked through the microscope. Jack and Annie ran up one flight of stairs to Henry's lab. They tried to open the door, but it was locked. We need Henry, said Jack. We don't have time, said Annie. We don't have a choice, said Jack. Jack and Annie charged back up the stairs to the upper deck. The crew was still gathered around the edge of the deck, yelling and shrieking about the octopus. Henry was coming towards them. Henry, help us, said Annie. She raced to Henry and grabbed him by the arm. She pulled him towards the stairs. You have to unlock your lab. We have to get Jack's pack. It's life or death. Hurry, hurry, hurry! Why? What? Sputtered Henry. We'll explain later, said Jack. Just hurry, said Annie. Henry looked baffled, but they walked quickly and he led Jack and Annie down the stairs. They nearly pushed him across the hall towards his lab. The scientist pulled out his key and unlocked the door. Jack and Annie burst into the lab. Yay! Said Annie. Jack's pack was on the table. Jack grabbed it and tore it open. He pulled out the wand of Dythus. The silver spiraled wand gleamed in the dim light of the room. What is that? Asked Henry. We'll explain later, said Annie. Come on, let's get back up, said Jack. No, we don't have time, cried Annie. Use it now. Now, Jack, now. Say something before they hurt him. Jack held up the wand. 5 words, said Annie. I know, said Jack. But what 5 words? This was their only chance. Hurry up, said Annie. I am, said Jack. But we can't just save him this one time. We have to make sure the ship never tries to hurt him or others again. Jack closed his eyes and pictured the giant octopus, his umbrella-like body and long tentacles, the gaze of the yellow eyes, and a gaze that had curiosity and shyness. There's Jack. The wand. Jack thought of the sheer wonder of the octopus's existence. The giant sea animal was incredibly amazing. He was like a miracle. Jack wished he and Annie could explain the miracle of the octopus to everyone, but no one would listen to them. Unless... Hurry, Jack! Say the words, said Annie. Make them hear the truth. The words had burst out of Jack. What? Said Annie. Make them hear the truth, said Jack. His eyes still shut tight. That's my wish. Make all the guys upstairs hear the truth about the octopus. What are you talking about? Said Henry. What is the stick that you're waving? Jack opened his eyes. He shook his head at Annie, but she didn't see him. It's a magic wand, Annie said to Henry. Actually, said Jack, trying to think of something else to say. Oh, yes, I see, Henry said, smiling sadly. You're pretending, like children. We are children, said Annie. Come on, Jack. Let's go tell them the truth. That was chapter 9. Now we're going to do chapter 10. All right. This one's called The Heart of the Ocean. So we're going to do 2 chapters today. Okay. The Heart of the Ocean. Jack put the wand back in his pack. Then he and Annie charged out of the lab, with Henry behind them. The 3 of them climbed back up the stairs. When they stepped onto the top deck, they heard the sailors still shouting and yelling. Jack and Annie raced across the deck. They pushed through the crowd until they got onto the railing. The octopus was still in the net, bright red and hiding his face in fear. The sailors had gathered weapons. Some were aiming harpoons at him. Others stood by with knives. Some pointed pistols. Stop! Cried Annie. Stand back, said the captain and yelled at her. You might bring it up alive, begged the professor. I beg you to let me examine it before you slay it, Captain. But before the captain could answer, someone hurled a harpoon at the creature. It missed it and landed in the water with a splash. No! Yelled Annie. Listen to us, Jack yelled in his loudest voice. You have to hear the truth. He stood up on the bottom rung of the ship's railing so everyone could hear him. Do not touch him, he shouted. He's not going to hurt you. He deserves to live peacefully in the sea. He's a miracle of nature, said Jack. But no one was listening. No one even turned towards Jack. Stop and hear us, said Annie. We speak the truth. Leave him alone. Remove the children, the captain roared again. Now! Tommy and Joe grabbed Annie. Let us go! We have to tell them, yelled Annie, kicking and flailing. She and Jack broke loose of the sailors. She's right. They have to hear the truth, yelled Jack, running towards the railing. He's okay where he is. He's different from people, but he's a miracle. Again, no one seemed to hear. The magic was not working, Annie cried to Jack. I know, said Jack. He was so desperate. No one was hearing the truth. What was wrong? He and Annie had followed the rules. They were trying to help others, not themselves. They had tried their hardest first. Then Jack used the only 5 words. Look, the sailor shrieked. Look at the monster! Jack and Annie looked back in the water. The giant octopus had uncovered his head and raised it out of the water. Leave! The sound was a breathing whispering as if it had come from the wind. One of the members of the crew lowered their weapons and stepped back in awe. It, it speaks, said the sailor. Me! The sound was a wild and shrill as if it came from the deep forest. Go! The sound was hollow and haunting, as if it came from an ancient gong or bell or drum. Home! The sound was unbearably sad. It came from the heart of the ocean. I'm no monster. The octopus fell back into the water. All the seamen and the scientists stared in wonder and terror. Then Annie's voice rang through the silence. Did you hear him? He said, let me go home. I'm no monster. That's pretty cool. So the octopus said, let me go home. I'm no monster. The crew looked at each other in shock. That's what he said. I heard it too, one man said. I heard it with my own ears. I heard it too, said another. Me too. Me too, said two more. It's a sign, said the sailor. We can't hurt him. Or any other like 'em, said another. All eyes turned back to the captain. He stood still for a moment, staring down at the giant octopus in the net. The captain looked at the professor. The professor seemed stunned. He opened his mouth but no words came out. The captain looked at Jack and Annie. Please hear him, said Annie. He told you the truth. He's not a monster. The captain stared at the octopus for a long moment. Then he raised his hands. Free him, he said softly. The sailors slowly put down the harpoons, axes, pistols, and ropes. Sir, I request permission to cut the creature from the net, said Henry to the captain. The captain nodded. Permission granted, Sir Mosley said to the captain. Help me, Henry said to Jack and Annie. Sure, said Jack. Well, come too, mate, said Joe. Joe and Tommy hurried after Henry and Jack and Annie to the row of small boats on the deck. The sailors lowered one of the boats down to the surface of the water. Then Jack, Annie, Joe, Tommy, and Henry climbed down the ladder and stepped inside the boat. Everyone else watched from the deck. Joe and Tommy rowed along the side of the ship until they came to the spot where the giant octopus was trapped. The two sailors held the boat steady with their oars. Grab the net, Henry said to Jack and Annie. Jack reached out and grabbed a corner of the net. Annie helped him pull it out of the water. Henry used a big knife to slice through the thick rope of strands. Even though the rowboat was rickety and violent, Jack didn't feel sick at all. Jack, Annie, and Henry pulled the torn net into the small boat. Jack kept staring at the octopus. He looked back at all of them with his great eyes. His tentacles spread out about him like a giant flower. His fierce red had changed back to gray. Goodbye, you, said Annie softly. Go home now. The octopus lifted his two tentacles as if to wave goodbye. Then he slipped under the surface of the water and vanished. So here's them releasing the octopus. So we'll have to find out what happens to Jack and Annie in the next couple chapters.